everyone, and you are all very, very welcome to the WOOC UCI Mountain Bike World Series. Round one here from Mairipora in Brazil, and it's time for some cross-country Olympic racing. Getting things underway this morning with the under-23 women. Mercifully, it is a bit cooler here today than it was yesterday when it was absolutely baking out there. Here at the IMTB Mountain Bike Park outside Mairipora, 24 degrees Celsius, so down from about 29 yesterday, but 86% humidity, which is up, so the Lord never gives with both hands. The world's best under-23 women forming up on the grid. You can see the ice vests are still on, the umbrellas are still out. Katarina Sadnik, the KTM Factory MTB team, doing her very best to stay cool. Ginya Kaluri, new team for her this season on the Villiers Vitoria Factory team from the Thomas Maxson squad last season. You always want to have a good first outing on a brand new squad. Tyler Jacobs, the South African, on Trek, one of many, many young talents on tracks. Emily Johnson, there's another one. Trek Future Racing, that young development squad. The feeder, really, into the Trek Factory Racing team. We saw it on the 23 men's cross-country Olympic races yesterday. Listen to the noise as we get Juliana Salvini Morgan onto the grid. The mechanic amping things up. They didn't need amped up to begin with, believe me, but their support the young Brazilian riders have got here this weekend, absolutely unreal. Sophia Witt, BH Kaluma team. Cool towel around the neck. Yeah, the under-23 men's race really was a battle of the tracks. Riley Amos, Bjorn Riley going at it in that one. Are we going to see the same today? US national champion Madigan Monroe for Trek Factory Racing Pirelli. Ice vested up. I'd be tempted to do a couple of laps of that thing still on, but she's taking it off. And the winner of the short track earlier in the weekend, Kira Bohm for Cube, takes to the start line the young German. So you are Bohm, Monroe, Witt, Salvini Morgan, Johnston, Jacobs, Kaluri. It's your front line. Spetsnaz in there, the Czech, highly rated. Ella McPhee as well for Pivot Cycles, the Canadian. As we are getting ready to go racing here in Mairipora, Brazil. Joining me in the booth is Ollie Beckinsale ahead of this one. Ollie, brand new class for 2024 in this one.
Definitely in the under-23 women's. There's the top four from last year have all moved up into elite. There's a couple of famous. Gina Kaluri is one of probably the best ranked before the race, but there's a load of new stars. And being out of Europe, there's a load of different riders we haven't seen before. It's going to be almost a fresh race.
Well, let's get them off the line then. They are going to go under starters' orders for the first cross-country Olympic UCI World Cup, the under-23 women's category. It's all to play for here in Mairipora. A new season starts here. And it is green for go in Brazil in the first UCI cross-country Olympic World Cup for the under-23 women. And that is Katarina Sadnik.
Bad start for Kira Bohm as well, the winner from the short track yesterday.
Yeah, she's been swallowed up a little bit.
Moving up on this start loop climb.
Sadnik heading out onto the start loop. So it's a start loop plus 4 laps for these under 23 women. The Brazilian alongside her, she'll be roared on every inch of the way here. But boom, back to the front on the cube.
Yeah, I mean, clipped in poorly, got kind of swamped a bit, but on that asphalt straight up the outside, and just showed the strength again that she showed in the XCC yesterday.
There is Ginia Kaleri on the number 1 bike as well, so the highest ranked rider from last season. As Ollie said, the 4 above her have all moved up into the elite category. So Ginia Kaleri, really one of the well-fancied riders to do well this season, but you still got to make it your own, and it's still a very hungry category, Ollie, isn't it? If you want to make a name for yourself, you want to get in a big team, this is where you do it. 100%.
This is it's obviously the stepping stone up to the elite ranks, but everyone that's performing at the front end have all had great U23 careers. We sometimes don't see it. A good junior doesn't necessarily make a good elite, but definitely a good U23. And that's some start. Carla Hahn, Lexware rider, really going for it from lap 1.
Yeah, the Lexware squad did a really eventful under 23 men's race yesterday. There was crashes, punctures, drama, and a podium. So Lexware leading the way here.
And I think, it's surprising to see someone launching it on the start loop. Obviously got fantastic legs, placing 9th yesterday in the XCC, Carla Hahn, and moving forward already, getting the gap. I mean, that's a strong move.
It's a bold move. Let's see if it works out for her. Hahn out front.
Emily Johnson sitting there pretty, got a great start as well.
Yeah, Johnson and Monroe really highly rated as well, the Canadian and the American. But it's a funny one, isn't it? Sometimes we see, the leading riders from the year before, they go up into elites and dribs and drabs. But for the 4 big names in this one to all be up this season, it does open things up.
And this is going to be this is on the lap every time, but it's really steep. I mean, it's deceptively obviously on the TV cameras it dumbs it down, but you see all of a sudden only the first few, and it's just going to cause absolute carnage.
Yeah, there we go.
Back.
So that is Sophia Way off and running, and then as we always see in cross-country mountain bike racing, the ripple effect behind one rider getting off can be substantial.
Madigan Monroe caught out in that one as well. And it's like, you're going to hemorrhage loads of time in this aspect. And when I pre-ran the course earlier in the week, it's crazy steep.
It is very steep, that part. It's a busy course as well. It's wide and it's fast, but it's very seldom straight.
Yeah, it's really intense. There's ups and downs. You come down quite a... they're saying it's not technical. I think it's technical. But, big rock loops dropping down where we are now, and these sections all lap together.
That looks fairly technical to me through there.
Yeah, I'd call that pretty tech.
I think it's one of those... I think it is one of those things that... one of those tracks, certainly the Cannondale Factory Racing riders told us earlier in the week that on the first walk round it looks pretty straightforward, but whenever you introduce race pace to that and those obstacles start coming at you at a lot faster rate, it is a different thing.
100%. When you hit it at race speed, trying hard in a line of riders, that rock section that you didn't find too much of a problem in your recon lap all of a sudden becomes super difficult.
Yeah.
And after we're dropping down this rock section now, there's a big 180-degree berm, and then one of the toughest climbs in the lap, back to this key area, and this is where a lot of the fans are going to congregate today. You've got several lines, part of the course, all coming down. It's a really cool part of the circuit. Well,
there is your leader, Hahn. She's got 4 seconds in hand. She gets... This is worth talking about now. This second tech zone traditionally is just for technical assistance, but due to the humidity and the heat here in Brazil, they have allowed bottles in there as well. Good move for you, Ollie?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, talking about that humidity, I mean, it's hot here, but it's that humidity at over 80%. The riders, the sweat doesn't evaporate, so it means they find it harder to cool down. So once their core body temperature rises and starts to be getting uncomfortable and the body starts to worry a little bit, they slow. There is no blagging it. A hot heat, you can just pour some water on yourself and instantly cool down. That doesn't have the same effect today.
Yeah, over that rock safely for Hahn. Looking comfortable out there. As comfortable as anyone could be in this humidity, but we did see it with a few riders in the under 23 men's cross-country Olympic distance yesterday, where just all of a sudden lap times dropped, or all of a sudden they moved back a couple of spots, and it's just that process of slowly cooking yourself. And in these conditions, you know, it doesn't take a lot.
And this climb here, again, super steep, and this is one of the steepest sections of the course, but it lasts long enough that you don't fly up it. You get about a quarter of the way with momentum, and then you're in first gear grinding up.
They've really pinned hand back on that as well. You can see just the gear that Emily Johnson was spinning up there in the last shot gives you an indication of how steep that is, but then it's over. So yep, a track really filled with tight punches. The top 10 separated by 22 seconds now. Salvini Morgan in 7th, the leading Brazilian. And this is why you want to be out front on that start loop, just to avoid getting caught up in stuff like this.
We see Laura Angela, Trinity racing again. Kind of difficult start. She's trying to move away through the field, but every time they get to one of these climbs and she's out to walk, the time she's just made up has then been lost again. It's just going to be a really frustrating day out, I think, for her.
Yeah, it's almost a cyclocross technique, isn't it? It's almost being able to have a sixth sense as to when it is going to be quicker to get off and run and be off and ready for it.
We saw on that climb before where that reel coming together, steep, loose, and almost riders toppling over, and then you lose a lot of time in that section, but also as well what it does, the adrenaline rushes, you start to panic, and it almost affects the next 5 minutes of racing.
You can see as well just despite the moisture in the air, just how dusty and blown out sections off the track have become, as we see a slow-mo shot of Han through this big rock section. Bart and I had a giggle about it yesterday. If you want to assemble a crowd anywhere at a mountain bike event, just stick a load of big dirty rocks down the middle of the track and the crowds will form around them. There's Monroe safely through.
But Callahan was pinning that.
Yeah,
fully airing off that second rock.
Really smooth. Leah Huber there as well. Trek Future Racing. There's Kaluri. So Kaluri has moved to the front.
Yeah, on paper the favourite for today. 5th overall last year, going into this race ranked number 1.
And we talked about it. We've talked about it a few times this weekend, Ollie. That can be a tough thing to carry into the season with you. That favourite status.
100%. And we find this first race.
Bike just kicking out on. Just clipped a rock there slightly.
And this is what we're going to find on this circuit. Again, it's when they get to speed and intensity, those loose corners, the rock sections, in their recon lap wasn't very difficult, but at high speed we are going to see people washing out. They're going to lose the front wheel. And when you get a real close race like we're going to get here, following into those sections, you're at a slight disadvantage. And so the key today as a racer is knowing there's sections where if you follow, start, finish straight, and just before it, you can actually get quite a draft and some aerodynamics kick in. But on these sections, actually having clean air in front of you is going to make a big difference.
There is Madigan Monroe, currently in 7th, so she has moved backwards slightly. Kaluri leads the way from Bohm. Johnson tucking in 3rd. Just purely as a fan as well, I always think it's great to see a new circuit.
Yeah. And I love this circuit.
As the first round of the year. It is cool, isn't it? It's a level playing field. It's anyone's guess, anyone's race.
I think it's that nice balance between technical enough to make it interesting, physical enough to split the race up, but not too much. So we're going to end up, as we saw in the U23 men's race yesterday, really close action all the way up to the finish. And we're seeing now on a front group of 4 riders, almost 6, coming around this start loop.
Yep, the top 3 staying together. Crowds, as you can see, starting to fill up the IMTB bike park. Big day here in Brazil.
Good start from Valentina Corvi, the Italian rider on Santa Cruz.
Oh, that looked like Monroe to me. May have been down there at the bottom of that steep section. Let's see if she comes in the shot now.
Again, Monroe, from last year's results, one of the favourites for this year today, and struggling to keep up with the pace on this first lap. But it was Callahan who went off so hard.
Yep, Han in 5th now, 14 seconds off the lead, so that early attack may have just burnt a few matches. these three. We did see this in the under-23 men's race as well, didn't we? We saw a group of 4 riders at the front who were sort of content to just chip away for the opening laps and just build up a bit of a cushion of a lead. And then, of course, we saw Riley Amos attack whenever there was a coming together. Didn't need a second invitation.
Yeah, I think if you're in that group of 3 now at the front, I'd be really happy. You know, you're in the right place, you're not having to fight, you're not going to get caught in any of the bottlenecks. And also now they can calm down a bit. They're going to have to preserve their energy as well, but also as well keep that core temperature low. It's going to be a real key aspect of the race, is not overheating.
Yeah, Emily Johnson, Canadian national champion there in the red and white jersey, 3rd position. Here is the overtake for the lead. Then just watch top of your screens in the woods at the top of that climb. Kaluri blasting through.
And you see it was the whole front, all that front 3 went right. Now the time, this is a proper race. We're
this corner here, that right-hander that Kaluri's just cleared. Actually, we saw a couple of crashes in there yesterday where the ground had become so saturated from riders tipping bottles over themselves at that point to cool down that all of a sudden on this completely dry track there was just a completely slick bit of wet grass.
And we know from cyclocross there's nothing more slippery than
wet grass.
Well-ridden wet grass.
It's a nightmare on a mountain bike. You never know where the grip is until it's gone. There is Munro, so she has been down.
So we're on to the lap proper now. It's not so much a start lap loop, it's more of a start lap. It just cuts out this first climb and the first bit of single track, so makes it a bit fairer for the field when they're bulked up. Not
much dirt on this climb. That's where Sam Gay has attacked during the short track race. He pretty much excavated a line the whole way up it.
And the climb is relatively wide, and then we come into this pump track section 3 abreast.
3 abreast, yep. Kira Bohm retakes the lead then. Well, I say retakes the lead. Really, for the first time, we've seen her at the front now.
And Kira Bohm yesterday, we saw in the short track racing, this pump track, although it looked, like I say, when I had a little run around, looked like a basic section, but in the races, riders have used it to attack. We saw Evie Richards in the short track using that spot, Riley Amos in the short track, both going on the pump track, knowing that that was an area where if they're better, they can gain just 2 or 3 metres, then they put the pressure down, and that's a decisive move.
Yep, so it's Bohm, Kaluri and Johnson at the front. Kaluri, off-season team move. Ollie mentioned at the top of the show, she's moved to Villiers Vittoria factory team, the team of Sophie Heavy Pedersen, dominated so much the first half of last season. There is Madigan Munro, currently in 5th, so 17 seconds off. Valentina Corvi in front of her, the Santa Cruz RockShox Pro team rider. Munro bringing this gaggle of riders back with her as well. How big a one is that psychologically for a rider moving team at the start of a season?
I think it can be, it's a big move, and it can go it can be very positive, but hugely negative.
It can also be very negative, I'm familiar with that one.
So you can move to a team, and the grass is always greener, I think, in cycling, and you go there and you think, I'm going to have the best kit, the best this, the best travel, and sometimes you get there and it's true, and you find this amazing program that you're so happy with, the teammates you gel with, happy days, but you're locked into a contract. It's not something you can do for one race and go, I'm not too keen on this, I'm going to switch. You're in. And if you've got a bad setup, bad morale, people don't really get on within a team. It's a travelling family. So there's a technical part, the kit, and then there's a human part, how you get on with everybody.
It's also, speaking of the human part, everyone gets on, and we see, plenty on social media from these teams all enjoying each other's company. And mountain bike racing, ultimately, solo sport, and the will to win is there. We saw a bit of a heated debrief between Specialized factory racing riders, Martin Vidare and Victor Koretsky at the end of the short track last night. It was quite quickly put to bed on social media. They both pronounced their love for each other quite quickly afterwards, but it just goes to show that the team dynamic is essential, but ultimately you're out there to win as well.
I think for the under-23 riders, there's an element of who are the senior riders in the team in terms of development. So if you think of Lilia Vittoria, it's Sophie Heavy Pedersen, who was the under-23 multiple winner last year. So they're going to be doing a recce together on the course. So if you're going to learn off of the last year's under-23 multiple winner, that's your roommate and your riding partner. That's got to be a super positive, I think.
The riders all safely off this little fly-off drop.
And Juliana Silvini Morgan as well, the Brazilian local rider, still holding in there. She had a great short track, moved away forward from her start position. She was ranked 12th, moved away up, but doing a good race so far. And the Brazilian local crash, absolutely bonkers for it.
Yeah, such is the passion of this Brazilian crowd. You almost feel for the Brazilian riders because although they're hugely well supported, the pressure's unreal as well. We spoke with Henrik Avancini quite a bit about that yesterday as well, and he said the last time the UCI World Cup was in Brazil, in Petropolis a couple of years ago, he said it was a very, very difficult race for him just to process and sort of get through because of the level of the support.
Yeah, super emotional. And we saw yesterday, I was watching the finish of the U23 men, and Alex Malacane, the Brazilian rider on Trinity, finished. He got a 6th place. He was sprinting for 5th. The crowd, it was like the wind in the short track.
Yeah.
It was going absolutely bonkers. And he lost, and they were like, the disappointment in the crowd. It was like a penalty shootout in football or something.
I did think the guy beat him. I did say it, sort of half joked at the time that he should probably just keep riding back to the van and get out of here because they might have got a hold of him. But Kira Bohm at the front of this one, leading away. Emily Johnson, Gina Kaluri, still that group of 3 out front, all covered by 1 second. Then 20 seconds back to Madigan Monroe, who has moved her way back up into 4th after that crash early on. But 20 seconds off the lead. Valentina Corvi is with her as well, Santa Cruz RockShox Pro Team rider.
And the key now for Madigan Monroe, after that kind of bad start on this, in the section we're looking at now, on lap 1 had a problem, so she's just got to be very patient. You know, the tendency is to panic a bit. She would have gone into this race, I'm sure, thinking that a top 3 was a goal at a minimum. So to be sitting there 4th, 20 seconds off, the tendency is to panic a little bit. Oof, and they're coming down.
2 abreast, yeah.
So there is 2 lines. There's 4 sections of rocks here. The first line, there's 2 lines, and I was just watching riders when they were doing their recce laps, and there was no rule of thumb as to which one was fastest, or top riders picking both lines, and seeing the racing we saw then, and not an overtake, but almost bar to bar. It was pretty ballsy action.
You can see there. That wider line, slightly more circuitous, right over to the rider's left.
But yeah, the gap's growing out back to 10th place already, back to 37 seconds to Tyler Jacobs, the South African. But this section here,
Emily Johnson has got the lead of the race, having got round
in the rock garden.
Kira Bohm in the rock garden, and we're just seeing she stretched out to 2 seconds. Trek Future Racing rider.
Yeah, that was a big move.
Yeah, that required.
That's commitment.
Front.
Yeah,
that was commitment. Emily Johnson, though, very, very gifted technically.
And she's not hanging around either.
No, Kaluri getting passed by Bohm on this climb. Bohm maybe sensing that this could get out of hand, that she's having to cover it off. So Emily Johnson leads the way here in Mairipora, Brazil, just getting kicked off that rock. There is.
It's a nasty little turn that. You're just turning blind, topping over that rock, and it's just starting to get, as more and more riders ride it, we're seeing getting looser and looser on the corners, and then we're straight into, I think this is one of the toughest sections.
This is a tough section, yeah, it's breathless, isn't it? Bohm has brought it right back to Emily Johnson, and Kaluri has cleverly enough ridden the bike in front of her and just got onto the back of Bohm. Bohm with the number 13 upside down. Bit of a cycling superstition that if you put the number 13 on upside down, it cancels out any bad luck.
Guaranteed, yeah,
scientifically proven, isn't it? I have seen some people with the number 13 upside down have some huge crashes over the years as well, though, so I don't think it's nailed down that one works.
We got this fight for 4th at the moment.
Corvi, Monroe, Onesti.
And hopefully, what you hope is if you're in that 4th, 5th, there's that little bit of synergy. You're not kind of fighting together as such, especially at this stage in the race, but working together, working off each other, both taking turns a little bit, hoping that you can probably hold the gap to that front 3, and it was 20 seconds, it's now going up to 25. And that was the pressure from Johnson.
Then it's Salvini, Morgan, Shrenska and Jacobs are your top 10. You see them through these logs, really awkwardly placed logs as well.
We see those new, sweet-looking gold Fox forks
Do you like
for this
them?
year.
Do you like the gold?
Yeah, I think it's pimp.
I
like
think it's cool on a race bike, but I think if you've got to have a bit of speed to roll up with that.
Yeah, I think it's
okay.
I think it's cool.
If you like it,
it,
I like it. The gold Fox forks to celebrate 50 years of Fox Racing Shocks. Also got a new grip damper in there as well, so not just cosmetic.
A lot of new tech with the suspension, obviously with the RockShox with their flight attendant, Fox launching new dampers, a lot of scrap. We always see this as well. It's this bit of Olympic year tech. Yeah. Everyone wants to just push things forward, and you normally see a few releases, less so in the bikes, but some of the manufacturers' components.
Yeah, plenty of cameras on race bikes this year. Yeah, there you can see the flight attendant, a little box just on the front suspension fork of Emily Johnson's bikes at the top of the crown that links the suspension together and basically works off.
Unbelievable system.
Honestly, on the hardtail, actually, I've just spotted there as well. Yeah, SRAM flight attendant. Works with her rider's power input to adjust what the suspension compression settings are doing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest changes we've seen in tech for quite a while on the bikes, to have that ability. And for me, it makes a lot of sense, especially on a circuit like this where you've got, harsh, fast descents going straight into steep climbs. There's not enough time to do the drop seat post, or the gears and all the lockout suspensions.
I think what's interesting about the increased electronics and Bluetooth connectivity on modern cross-country race bikes is this very thing we're looking at in front of us now, the under 23, the younger categories who are coming through with that technology on their bikes.
Yep.
And you can imagine what in 4 or 5 years time they'll graduate into elite. So yeah, you can see Madigan Monroe has made a real mess of that right hand side, elbow and leg cut.
And you see people are relatively new to the sport. Most of the riders these days running a full suspension bike, so they have suspension travel, probably 100 mil or 120 mil, both front and back. And then they have units on the handlebars, and we were just talking about that flight attendant, which is automatic, which is slightly bonkers. But they want to have it locked out on the steep climbs and then completely open full suspension on the descents.
Yeah, and that's purely based on efficiency. Whenever I first started covering cross-country racing, I thought that the handlebar mounted suspension lockout systems, I was like, how often do you use it a lap? And I think it's actually Lucas Flukiger, who was racing still at the time, told me 40 to 50 times a lap.
It's as much as changing gear.
It's unreal, isn't it? You'd think it would just be, right, I'm at the bottom of the climb.
No.
We'll lock her out. No, they really use it the entire way around the track.
So here, this front 3, this is one of the few opportunities on the circuit. We're just cutting into the finish, and you can have a little drink, kind of regroup yourself, maybe have an energy gel as well. Most of the riders are not going to eat any food today. It's too short, too hot. They might have either carbohydrate drinks in their bottles or carbohydrate gels. But this is the time where you can just regroup. You've got here the start-finish straight. The rest of it, you're either up or down.
Yeah, honestly, that's actually really surprised me that she is on the hardtail. Bart did reckon that this was a hardtail track earlier in the week, but Bart pretty much maintains that every track is a hardtail track.
Every track's a hardtail track. Yeah,
maximum power. And so, as you say, the sort of perceived wisdom that's kind of on its way out now in the sport is that the hardtail traditional double diamond frame more efficient because the energy is only going to go one place, and that's into the back wheel. But
so partly it's the efficiency, partly the weight. The difference between a full suspension bike and a hardtail bike, 600-700 grams, not a huge amount, a kilo at the most. So
Kira Baum back to the front now, ahead of Emily Johnson and Kaluri. Kaluri maybe just keeping her powder dry a bit here, Ollie. She's in a good place. She's not having to do too much work at the front of this one.
And we see, I think Emily Johnson, we saw in that tech session, a little bit faster through the rocks. Kira Baum has probably got the power, And I think they're pushing in those sections. And then you've got Kaluri, I think, is just sitting back. She's either one of two things, doing a really smart race or suffering a little bit. It's hard to tell at the moment.
It's hard to tell at the minute, yeah. Such is the strength of the poker faces of modern cross-country racers. Really, really hard to tell. We saw a great example of that in the elite men's short track yesterday, whenever Sam Gaze basically looked like he only started breathing on the last lap.
And that gap, it was holding at about 20 seconds to Valentina Corvi and Madigan Monroe. It's still there at 23, so they're doing a good job of hanging in there. And that could still come back.
Yeah, could do indeed.
If these front three just kind of don't really press on or look at each other a bit, that 23 seconds on this lap can close. I think once you start getting to 40, 50 seconds, it's difficult.
You could see there, to my eyes, it looked like Kaluri was having to work a bit on that climb to stay with those front two.
Yeah.
Outless saddle, tapping the power on.
Juliana Salvini-Morgan, 7th place, doing a really good
She's
ride.
holding steady there, isn't she, in 7th? She's been there for a while now. Tyler Jacobs, a front row starter, is a minute back on Kira Bohm, who leads the race. It gives you a bit of an idea.
And Patrice Schranker as well, the Czech rider, working her way through. She was one of the higher ranked riders from last year. Didn't have a great short track yesterday, so a bad gridding, but she's now up to 9th and working her way through. And I can imagine she's going to start closing on that front 5 over these next 2 laps.
And they come through the pump track section. If you're new to mountain biking, pump tracks, fantastic for learning, dialing in skills. Young riders, older riders, doesn't matter. They're really, really fun, useful tools. But on a cross-country racetrack, get your timing wrong on one of those rollers and you're left. You can't really pedal on them. There's not enough room between the wee mini features, and you end up just going slower and slower the whole way around.
Yeah, it's amazing how a good, technically efficient rider on a pump track can find 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah,
it's free
speed, isn't it?
Free speed, yeah, and they're recovering as well. They're not having to work hard. They don't find it difficult. They flow through, carry speed, and like I say, we saw Riley Amos in the short track race. That was where he gained his 5 meters and won the race. So,
Kira Bohm, Johnson and Kaluri, still your lead group. The chase group on your screen now. Corby and Monroe, 23 seconds back. Kira Bohm looking to do the double here after winning the short track earlier in the weekend.
Olivia Onesti as well, working her way through as well. Again, poor short track, but coming on the way back through. Trinks Factory Racing. But these climbs are looking relentless, making it's hard work today, and that's that humidity will start to kick in. I think we'll see the lap times just getting slower and slower and slower as we go on. At the moment, fastest lap, Emily Johnson, lap 1 coming around 13:58. So it'd be interesting to see if they can keep that within that kind of 15-minute mark, I think, today.
Yep, first race of the year. Everybody would like a decent showing. Just important for the confidence and to settle the nerves ahead of a big, big season of racing. As we see Shrenska moving forward in the national colours of the Czech Republic. There's Tyler Jacobs, a South African.
But those front three, say Kira Bohm, we saw her in the short track yesterday. She didn't just win by a little bit, she won by quite a huge amount yesterday in the short. Took it on from about 3 laps to go, got a big gap, so she's clearly got the legs, she's got the power this weekend. Coming, obviously done her homework this winter.
Rode a very, very clever race.
Again, that gap going back, that 4th and 5th with Corvi and Monroe. 20, 23, 29. I think if that gets to 45 seconds or so, that's a done deal, and that front three have probably got that podium in the bag. And these little sections, key here is trying to recover. You get those not many flat sections, the kind of linking sections between the hard climbs and the technical bits. There's not many on this course. When you've got one, you just want to stand up on the pedals, drop your heels a bit, get some air back in, just cool.
Yeah, Brazil, first country to host 2 back-to-back UCI cross-country World Cup races since Canada in 2009. Do you want to have a guess where they were?
Bromont and Mont Saint Anne.
Yeah, you can see my notes pinned to the wall, can't you?
I was there. I raced them. I had 2 horrible races. That's how I remember it.
Look at Munro flying off that step-down drop. Yeah, I never got to go to Bromont. That was before my time.
Ah, there you go. It's a cool spot.
Yeah, I heard there's some good riding around that part of the world. Junior Kaluri, currently out front for the first time then. We've seen her. So this will be interesting now. That graphic wrong bomb has retaken the lead since it was made.
You see the difference just on that one section. The power of Baum just flew up there, got a few metres.
Yeah, she's got a bike length, hasn't she?
Yeah, definitely on the climb. She's the strongest of these trio. I like this section here, this big board walk carrying speed up into the next climb.
It's a lengthy looking ship, that new Cube cross-country race bike, isn't it? Which has kind of become the trend this off-season, the new bike tech. A lot of the big names keeping the suspension travel, the amount the wheel can move up and down in its suspension the same, but stretching the wheelbase out, and it just breeds a bit more speed, Ollie.
Every year we see these XC courses getting more technical, and the bike's just adapting every year. And one of the adaptations we're seeing a lot of the bikes now, like you say, is longer in the top tube, shorter in the stem, a longer wheelbase, which makes the bike more stable on the descents. And they're prepared to throw away a little bit of pure climbing speed or kind of position to gain that DH speed, which just shows the technicality of these new circuits.
I think that was something that, I always found confusing as somebody more ensconced in the gravity side of the sport. Whenever you looked at cross-country race bikes back in the day, was a singleness of purpose for climbing, whereas there was descending as well, and now you're seeing really they're kind of like mini enduro bikes now.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big change. I think 2008 Olympics, I think, was the first time that people rocked up, and Peter Maritzburg, the venue previously in South Africa, I remember it was the first time turning up and seeing this rock garden, and there was no obvious line, and everyone looking at each other, and we were riding really, for that section, really inappropriate bikes. Hardtails, long stems, super light 26-inch, so smaller wheels than the current 29-inch wheels that most guys are using, and thinking, how are we going to ride it? It's like, I can't see how I'm going to do it, and having to really think out, and that was a change. And then we saw the bike starting to adapt.
Yeah, well, you can see the RockShox Sid fork there, 35mm now diameter, chunky forks.
And a big change as well is the drop seat posts.
Yeah.
So at the flick of a switch on a handlebar, the seat post can go from the optimal pedaling position down into the frame, and it means that you can get really low and get that centre of gravity, and like you see these ladies now on this section.
Kira Bohm still leading away ahead of Emily Johnson on that new Cube cross-country race machine. Emily Johnson on a track and Gina Kaluri on a Villiers. This is about as steep as this track gets, this pinch up here.
And this is where we see Kira Bohm using that climbing power. Kind of longer limbed rider, looks more of a kind of traditional climber.
Yep.
And she can push, and just putting the pressure on Kaluri now. That metre or two, it's going to take its toll as the laps go on and the climbs go on. Over
that little awkward rock, there is a chasing pair.
We talked about how the courses are changing the technicality. These under-23 riders now, I think, are at an advantage coming through because they haven't had to adapt. They've started their careers on these very technical, rock-strewn courses. It's just normal. The skills now of the riders, you see on their socials, they wheeling galore, rocks, doubles, riding pump tracks. They're not pure road riders who go off-road a bit. They are now pure mountain bikers.
That shot of Nino Schurter on his last lap in Val di Sole Trentino last year, popping that big manual, you're just like, yep.
And we see Puck Peterson coming in, young rider, winning as an under-23 the senior women's last year, but the skill set she's got is
huge,
off the charts.
Puck Peterson missing in action from the opening couple of rounds in Brazil. She's got a hectic road programme in amongst the classic season, so she will pick up her mountain bike again, we are told, Novo Mesto na Morave in the Czech Republic, a month or so's time. elite women's cross-country Olympic racing. Coming to you later on this afternoon here from Mairipora, Brazil. For now, it's the under-23 women who are on track. Bit of a schedule shift around for the cross-country only weekends.
But it's free now. They were almost from half a lap in, established themselves as the front three of the race. It's been quite cagey. We saw Emily Johnson have a little pop on a climb, and then Kira Baum as well coming to the fore, and it's Kaluri who sat third wheel constantly the whole way around.
I think Kaluri's the joker in the pack here. We need to see what the Swiss woman in third place at the minute can do, because...
So you're going for the fact she's bluffing? I think she's struggling.
You think she's struggling?
Yeah, I think she's happy in third and she's just going to hang on to these two.
Oh, okay, Joe, I'll take you on then. I'll go for she's got this.
You reckon? Yeah. Last lap blast?
Yeah, last lap blast. Well, tune in to see how wrong I am in a bit. Kira Baum still out front.
But the interesting thing, we saw Emily Johnson, how good she was on that tech section. But yeah, the gap going back.
Yeah, you mentioned that gap back to fourth place, if it got around the 40 seconds mark, it's now 42, which kind of suggests that Valentina Corvi and Madigan Monroe may be out of contention for this one.
Cool, and this is the first time we've seen this section. We've got a drone shot coming down. It's double line. There's a faster line with the only kind of routes on the circuit, and then it's really fast. There's a big wall ride, and then we're coming down to the easier part of the circuit. But we're not predicted any rain today, but that section, if it was wet, would be like a water park coming down. It would just be so fast and sketchy. There'd be no grip.
No grip at all. There is the chase and pair then. They're now, by our screens in the booth, 43 seconds back. Corvi seems to be rocking and rolling a little bit. The mouth's open, and Monroe still with her. So if Monroe has more in the tank, she may have to jettison the Italian quite soon, who's done all the work.
For this little section down here, we've got this kind of steep drop off and then a couple of tight bends. I saw a couple of riders yesterday on this corner just before. That was where they lost the front wheel.
Johnson just had to catch one there. Quick reactions from the Canadian.
It's just starting to break up a little bit.
Yeah, and crumbling.
And it's just, there's a little edge on the... Just as you turn, there's an edge, and then it's breaking up afterwards. And I think what we're going to see is... I think in this front three, they can see what they're doing. They can leave a little bit of a gap. Once we get into the elite women's and men's races later on today, when we're probably going to get a group like this, but of 10 or 12 riders, I think that's when we're going to see those little incidences of people losing. I think it's going to be people losing the front wheel on seemingly basic corners, rather than the rocks making the deciding factor.
Especially whenever race pace is injected. So Monroe has now gone past Corvi. She maybe heard us already. She's had to get a move on if she wants to get back towards the podium.
Yeah, and there comes a point as well. It's a long season, and this is obviously a huge race, big one for the year, a lot of stress before it. But it's the first of 8. There's an overall to ride for, and therefore there comes a point in the race where you go, do you know what? I'll take 4th or 5th. That's pretty good. Yeah. You start the race with an expectation, and then there's a realisation sometimes that actually where you are is that'll do the job. I'll take that.
Saw a slow motion shot there of the necklaces of Corvi and Monroe. Did you see the necklace sported by Bjorn Riley yesterday?
Yeah.
Sort of a meatloaf spec crucifix. Huge.
Really?
Yeah, massive. Fair play to him.
That's a statement as well, where everyone's worrying about the grams of their bike.
Exactly, I think if I was an engineer in Wisconsin chipping milligrams off bikes, I'd be looking at that necklace.
You rock up like B.A. Baracus and someone's like, what's going on here? I've made you a 9-kilo bike. You got 2 kilo of gold on.
Scrap metal around your neck. There is Gina Kaluri then, working away in third place, the Swiss woman on that new team for this season. Not many, quite a quiet place, the cross-country team market this off-season, Ollie. Is that purely because of the Paris 2024 games?
Yeah, most people are generally set. We see a bit of changing around in U23, but at the senior level especially, most of the top riders will be in a 2-year deal coming up to the games, and then in the year after the Olympics, then it's chaos. There's people swapping all over the place, and it shows that the impact of an Olympic. Well, we are the Olympic discipline in XCO, and it just shows the impact of that on the teams. And they're working out, and some riders are looking for overalls.
There's an SD across the line then at Trinks Factory Racing. Sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, doing a good ride, moving up. It's. We talked about before, there was no kind of standout favourites in these races. Well, a couple that had results last year. I was going through, some of the riders that finished 10th or 12th in the short track yesterday, and no top 8s or top 10s in last year's races. So, coming into this to score a top 10, coming into this is all kind of new ground for them, really. A
really clean slate. Yeah, it was a strange season in the U23 women's category. Last year we had Sophie Heavy Pettersson, the Dane, who really walked away with the first half of the season in the cross-country Olympic distance. She was untouchable. And then she had a really innocuous looking slide out, sort of toppled over as opposed to a crash in Glentress Forest at the UCI World Championships, and didn't really feature again. So Kaluri up into second place now.
It's the first time we've seen her move.
I'm telling you, she's been sandbagging.
Yeah.
Keeping it dry.
Johnson actually it's the first time I've seen her just squeal a little bit. The head just dropped to the side, like she was just having to make a little bit of an effort on that section.
Carvey and Monroe swapping places again, so the Italian not done yet, but is that kind of little head drop, is that perceptible to the riders around you?
Yes, 100%. And you've got some riders have a poker face. You mentioned Gay's in the short track. Sam Gay, looks like he's got his Terminator stare. Whether he's going slow or going fast, he's just got this amazing poker face. You've got some riders that just always look like they're suffering. So that's no use either, because they're always grimacing. But you get some riders, 1 minute they're looking good, and then there's a little crumble. And we can just see it. But the earlier laps, Emily Johnson wasn't rolling her shoulders. She was pretty solid on the bike. As soon as someone rolls shoulders, it's generally a good idea or a good sign that they're just starting to struggle a little bit.
Just struggling to see here. I think Honesty is on a solid seat post as well, so no dropper seat post on a hardtail. Bart Brenchens would be proud of that one. That is a full Brenchens move.
There was one year me and Bart were on the same team. We were racing in Madrid. Steers have a World Cup Centre Madrid. He took the internals out of his fork and replaced it with a stick. I'm not joking.
I never thought you were.
He put a stick in it.
Bart Brenchens, all about outright horsepower and everything else can wait.
So Olivia Nesti's coming from the Bart Brenchens school of just strip the bike down, rev and rip. Yeah,
he told me once about his first suspension fork that had 40 millimetres of suspension travel and about 30 millimetres of sag. So it sat right into his travel and left him with 10 millimetres to absorb bumps, but not a problem for the first ever Olympic champion. He's coming up later in the elite races. The Bart man will be with us. We've put up the Bart signal.
Yeah. He's en route.
He is en route, hopefully with the coffees, which he usually is very, very kind and brings.
And that gap now going 4th, 5th. Corby, I said, once we get into the 45 second or so, there's no coming back from
it's
that.
It's quite clear then who you're racing, is it?
This circuit, it's fast. The climbs are steep, they're tough, but they're not exceptionally long. And I think we're going to see cagey close racing like we have in this top 3. But once you see big gaps happening, there's not enough time pressing on the pedals to close big gaps.
That final left-hander on the start-finish straight absolutely pinned. You saw Kaluri just carve around it there, drop the shoulder, and
first
now
time we've seen Kaluri hit the front.
And she's having a good dig, Ollie.
This is the time we see Emily Johnson just letting that gap go. I said the lap more recently that I just thought she was swinging a bit, and you see the head bobbling side to side. Kaluri hitting the front.
Told you. Kaluri then moves to the front. Really, first time we've seen her do so on the third lap of 4. Not a bad time to go to the front of the race.
And say top-ranked rider from last year, 5th in the overall last year, 2nd in round 1. So she's got the history, got the pedigree, got the experience.
Sorry, that was one of those things, it's like when they say not a bad time to score in football. Of course it's not a bad time. Never a bad time to move to the front of a race, but Bohm has pegged her right back, so maybe Ciara Bohm can use that as a slingshot now.
But on the more physical sections, Ciara Bohm has 100% got the legs today.
Yeah.
We saw, on that short track performance yesterday, I was stood trackside just after the pump track, so halfway up the hill, and she was shifting. Real power going in. Similar
sort of build as well to riders like Riley Amos. Really long legs, slender, tall.
Got the torque, got the leverage, but on a lighter weight kind of package. It's that power to weight.
We spoke to Henrik Avancini earlier in the weekend about why he loves mountain bike racing so much, and one of the things he came up with, there were a few, but one of the things he came up really with was the fact that, there's no other format of cycling where rider build and shape matters almost so little.
No. We see such a mixed bag.
Yeah.
In road you get, a real mixed bag of riders, but they've got a very specific role. They're a sprinter, they're a classics guy, they're a climber. But mountain bike, you've got Sam Gaze, 6'3" or something, 80 odd kilos, and then you've got riders down at 58 kilos alongside him. It's a real mix, which I think is quite nice from a junior rider or youth rider coming in. That there's no set
physicality. You look at in the downhill side of things, you look at Jackson Goldstone versus even his teammate Greg Minnaar, the size difference, the shape difference, completely polar opposites, but often going for the same 1/10 of a second at the end of a run.
You can be a different body type but still be a good mountain biker, so I think someone coming in, I think that's a real...
Richie Rood in the Enduro World Cup, really big unit that you would sort of just assume if you were new to the sport that should not be really in an endurance sport. He's like a rugby player, but he uses that muscle to create speed everywhere.
Yeah. And it's such a mixed bag. You look at the skill set you need. Here we go. Big attack.
57 seconds back, the chasing group, but Ciara Bohm is having a nibble at the front of this one. Is this going to be a death by 1,000 cuts job?
Well, I think it was like Ciara Bohm was quite happy just setting this kind of hard tempo but not attacking. And then she was happy with that. But as soon as Kaluri gave that attack, she was like, right, no, I'm not having this.
Not having it.
Right, you're going to get it. And this real steep climb. And I think Emily Johnson has now been well and truly dispatched.
It's a generatively designed fork crown. If you look at the suspension fork, the rear arch of it, Fox really pushing the bleeding edge of technology as the lightest fork they make, and the rear arch of it computer designed to obviously offer incredible performance, but the looks of it like something off the set of Alien.
Emily Johnson back 9 seconds now. So her job now is to go into time trial mode. She's just got to settle in, not panic, not make mistakes. Grabbing a 3rd place for her in a podium would be exceptional.
The not panic bit is key, isn't it? Because in this humidity and in these temperatures, there's Monroe passing Corvey. They've had a real dust-up all race long, these two, as we watch your race leader, Ciara Bohm, going for the double here. Won the short track earlier in the weekend. Makes short work of that rock section, gets over to the left-hand side of that final one, as does Kalurian. Johnson just being distanced slightly in the middle of it. She's 9 seconds off the lead at the minute, the Canadian. Goes straight down the middle of that final rock, not going for the little gap over the end of it.
These under 23 women, they're so fast on the tech section, especially Emily Johnson flying, taking air over them, not just riding them, but launching off them.
Actually looking for time on descent,
That's another level.
Madigan Monroe then, the US national champion, currently in 4th, 1 spot off the podium, but she is 1 minute and 7 seconds back. There's an SD.
Yeah, look at that, pure climber, tiny, super lightweight, gone hardtail.
It's the solid seat post that's blowing me away. You just never see them anymore.
Saw a couple of times in Le J last year. Christopher Blevins in the men's. He was running.
Pauline Ferrand-Prévost's rocked them a couple of times lately as well, hasn't she?
There's about a few 100 grams difference in having the drop seat post or not. For me, it's a no-brainer. Once you've had one on,
I kind of get the, I kind of get the maximum gains weight is everything approach, but that doesn't count for much whenever the saddle has kicked you up the bum and you're going out the front door at 20 mile an hour.
But again, we're talking about these different skill sets of riders. Someone like Christopher Blevins, he's going into Leger last year going, right, where am I going to struggle on this circuit? He's obviously decided the climbs, not the technical sections, are where he's going to get gapped. So for him, he's gone, right, I'm going to tune my bike to make it as helpful as possible on the climbs, because I know I'm not having an issue on the tech stuff.
We saw Adrian Boischi from Trinity Racing as well. They reckon they could get that Epic World Cup of his down to 7-something kilograms with a solid seat post and all kinds of lightweight wizardry. But it's tough, as you say. The descents in cross-country, racing these days can eat bikes alive if you go too lightweight.
Yeah, there was a period of time where it was all, like you say, all about lightweight, and everyone's realised the bike's settling about 10 kilos.
So the win looking like it is going to come down to between these two riders on your screen now. Boom and Kaluri set to go toe-to-toe here in Mairipora at the opening round of the Whoop UCI Mountain Bike World Series here in Brazil.
It's going to be a big last lap, this one.
It's going to be a big last lap as well.
And like I say, that climb ramping up, it steps up, about 5 steps on the way up. There's little descents punctuating all the time, but you've got about five steps up, and then on the way down, it's relatively fast off that highest point. If
you're Kira Bohm, then you've got rid of one of them, you're left with the other one. What's your head telling you to do on this last, as you head towards this last lap?
I think it's getting to that pump track first, and then getting to the next climb with that steep section in front, so you can really use that physical skill that she's got to try and get the gap. Kaluri seems quite balanced. She's good on the tech stuff, but good on the climbs, whereas I think we see Bourne there just a foot out, is not so comfortable. So I think if she's going to win, she's got to get the gap on the climb up.
Yeah, Junior Kaluri, really well-rounded package, as you would expect from a rider who spent time on a team ran by Ralph Neff. Swiss cross-country legend and still a very, very fast rider in his own right, but he was one of the first. He was in that sort of first generation who were gifted all round a track.
Yeah, completely right. He was a proper all-rounder, and he would, you know, I remember he was second at Worlds 2008, and that was a kind of well-rounded circuit. He was a really solid. We see Emily Johnson now,
9 seconds,
closing that gap, and I think this is because of the second half of this course is descent heavy, so she can find a few seconds on this part. And they're going high on that one.
Yep, go a bit higher, generate a bit of speed. Gina Kaluri wheels off the ground there. Slots back in behind Bohm. So I guess her job is just to get in Bohm's head a bit. Just sit behind her. Don't let any of the attacks distance too much.
And you think, I don't know their sprinting qualities, but as a guess, you'd think Kaluri probably a bit more punchy.
Yeah, more compact, powerful rider. Yep. She did take it to the line a few times last season with other riders and usually came out on top.
Like I say, that big last berm coming down, we saw.
Bohm checks over her shoulder, gets an eyeful of Kaluri as they head on to the last lap here at the opening UCI Cross Country Olympic World Cup of 2024. Emily Johnson, no, not done yet by any stretch. The Canadian crossed the line. She's got another 2 seconds cleaved from this gap. So, has Johnson now got the win behind her sails?
So they're coming through the feed area now. That's also a tech zone, so there's spare wheels and parts there.
You can see that gap on your screens. Johnson homing back in on these front two. Possible, we do see this, Ollie, where riders just take a dip sort of towards the end of a race and all of a sudden rally again.
And this is the bit with the humidity side. If you just overheat a little bit, the brain just goes, you need to knock it back a notch just for a second. That may have just that little bit of a slightly slower climb just enabled her just to recover a touch. And hopefully now on this climb, you can see she's back on top of it. She's got access to all the power and can do a killer last lap. You see Bohm starting to put on the pressure. I think that, you know, hitting the climb now with a bit more intent, and I think she's going to start winding it up all the way to the top.
I tell you, outside the window of our commentary booth, the volume has just gone up a few clicks here at the finish area. It's like the last lap of a short track race. The crowd in Brazil loving this one.
Yeah, the support for Juliana Salvini Morgan, all the Brazilian riders this weekend, it's insane.
Yeah, Juliana Salvini Morgan still in 7th place, so...
Yeah, good ride, really good.
Really strong ride. She hasn't budged from that 7th, really, since the end of the start loop. But your top 10 currently: Bohm, Kaluri, Johnson, Corvey, Monroe, Onesti, Salvini Morgan, McPhee, Holibova and Jacobs. Good ride from Tyler Jacobs in 10th as well, the South African. Carla Hahn, who led so well in that first start loop, launched a speculative one really early doors. She's 11th currently, so she has dropped back but still riding a good race. Now there's a bit of daylight just starting to creep in between Bohm and Kaluri.
And this is what she has to do. She has to just keep the pressure on the whole way from top to bottom. If she tries to do a sprint attack, I think Kaluri's got the power to cover it. She needs to just go make it more of a long effort, drawn out attack.
Yeah, like producer Tim at the Toll Booth Plaza, the pressure's coming from all angles at her here.
But they're working hard now. Kaluri's well, still looking pretty good. And this is where the mistakes can happen. Johnson as well.
Johnson
carrying good speed.
Johnson
up here.
Really ticking over quite a high cadence as well.
Looking like she's recovered from that little wobble.
Just looking up ahead of her, up the track.
So you have this tough section now, then the pump track, the draggy climb to the top, and then we've got those 2 really steep climbs just after the rock gardens.
Yeah, they could be key. 12 seconds is the gap between Johnson and the leading pair now, so they have extended again, but the Canadian looking in fine fettle here. These two have been welded together for the whole race. Corvey and Monroe. Monroe had that crash early on lap 1.
And Trek Factory Racing having a good weekend so far, 3 wins.
Yeah, Trek Factory Racing. Trek really have invested in a lot of the young mountain bike and cross-country talent, and it really is beginning to show, especially in the North American side of things.
Really impressed. And obviously we have their future racing team as well. Emily Johnson on that squad. Bjorn Riley as well. I mean, 1-2 yesterday in the under-23 men.
Riley Amos all coming through that NICA Racing League, but...
And Kaluri just out the saddle swinging a little bit. And I think Dina Bohm just keep pushing.
Dina Bohm wheels down quite solidly off that little fly-off drop. Kaluri dips the head, tries to get into any kind of aerodynamic position to help her cause that she can. There is Johnson, 12 seconds back now. Lots and lots of time between what is looking like the top 3 and 4th place.
And after this section, we have a long, draggy section with that big steep climb we saw them struggling with on the start loop. And I think that's the key for Kira Bohm's race. She needs to keep the pressure on.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, Ollie, and predict that Corvey and Monroe are going to have to take this to a sprint, because there's been no distance between them whatsoever.
That's a good shot.
And there they are. Just gives you an idea of just how important cooling and liquid here in Brazil is.
On a day like today, their core body temperature will be getting close to that 40-degree mark.
So I know mine is.
Yeah, I've had it done testing in the past in races, recording body temperature. On a day like today, we get to that 40 degrees, which is like flu.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ollie. Just to see on the screen, we're seeing 4 seconds now between Bohm and Kaluri. That's as much as there has been all race long. So we need to get to the front of the race to see if that is an attack from Bohm.
But it's the gaps as well, back to 1:20 now, back to that chase group 3 with Corvey and Monroe.
Our screens in the booth have it at 3 seconds, so maybe Junior Kaluri just sitting back slightly off the wheel of the German. Germany and Switzerland going toe-to-toe here at the opening race of the season.
I say Kira Bohm, she seemed definitely the strongest on the climbs. Technically, not quite as proficient as Kaluri, and it's whether Kaluri can close that gap of 4 seconds back again before the finish. I think there's a chance it could come to a sprint.
Yeah, definitely a distinct possibility here. There is Bohm alone in the shot, though. We need to see where Kaluri is. And if that is the front of the race, that is a chunky gap. Has Ciara Bohm done enough? Is she going to take a historic first race double?
This is going to be close. That 3-second gap, it's agonisingly close. They drop down through the rock gardens, and then they got that really tough section. It'd be interesting to see if Bohm can make that, well, 5 seconds now, make that more like 7 or 8.
And this is just so indicative of tiny, tiny margins in cross-country racing at the minute. Whoa. That Villiers set down with a bit of vigour there.
And this is why I'm loving this circuit this weekend. It's making the racing super tight, really well designed.
Absolutely nothing between them all race long. Emily Johnson rattling through now on the track, 24 seconds back. Oof.
She's by far the fastest in this stuff.
That is
absolutely pinning it. And that gap now, I reckon that's closing a little bit. I thought on this section it would come back a touch, but I think it's probably holding about that few second mark.
Just up out of the saddle momentarily there. Boom, gritting the teeth.
This is going to be hurting now.
Ollie, put myself and the viewers at home, how deep is the burn at this point in a race?
So, full leg burn, lactic acid through the roof, body temperature really high, brain not really working very well. You know, it's just starting to misfire a bit. And it's coming into these segments. You often see mistakes this last lap. They're fighting. Everything in the body is kind of just starting to make small mistakes. And it's whether those small mistakes physically ended up becoming in a kind of an incident or a crash on a corner or a rock garden.
We talked about it a good bit last season, didn't we, about having to be physically fit enough to allow the brain to make those crucial decisions. 7 seconds now, so Ciara Bohm is applying the pressure. Has Kaluri got an answer?
No, Kaluri worked so hard on that climb, and it was that long false flap. You sometimes find that they commit to a climb, overexert a bit, but then on the next section, instead of changing down through the gears and attacking the false flap, they actually just stay in the same gear and cruise. And that's when you can, like, say, those 3 or 4 seconds didn't come from the climb, they came from the flat section after the climb. But we see now this is such a tough section, the surface as well, a bit loose. So all these riders, they have to stay seated to get the traction in the rear wheel. If it's got a better amount of grip, it means that riders on this section would be out the saddle, using a bit more body weight to produce the power, but because you can see the loose surface to dust, and this is getting, as more and more people race on it, the surface is getting looser. So we're going to see the races during today becoming more technical on the climbs themselves.
Emily Johnson then winching her way up this climb for the last time on lap 4 out of 4.
Yeah, doing a great race.
Yeah, 30 seconds back. 33 seconds actually by that graphic. So great race from Johnson, but she's going to have to be content with third step on the podium. But 5th place in the short track earlier in the weekend, 3rd place in the cross-country Olympic. Not a bad start to the year. These two, as predicted, still very, very little between them. They'll be sat beside each other on the flight to Arashad. They're that close.
And Kaluri back to 9 now, according to the speed checks.
I have 10 on my screen, so is Ciara Bohm
going to do the double.
Making a play for home and making a claim to do the double.
But what's been interesting as well, as soon as riders get gapped a bit, how hard this circuit is in terms of when they're in a group, they almost kind of stay together and stick together. But once they lose ground, how quickly it goes. You know, Emily Johnson has gone back 30 seconds pretty rapidly just on those hard little steep climbs, especially when everyone's getting hot.
So there's your top 5. Bohm, Kaluri, Johnson, Corvey and Munro. Boom.
The first time we've seen the grimacing.
Yeah, the grimacing is happening.
Oh, 15.
So Ciara Bohm has really, really exerted herself at the front. Takes that slightly longer, but I think faster beeline.
I agree.
And drops down into the shipping container.
Little chance for a little micro recovery through this bit. Nothing technical, carry some speed.
The number 13 proven pretty lucky for the German rider so far.
And Kaluri just going through that shipping container, so that's quite a gap now. We're just coming around that corner we can see in the back of the shot. Full power now, almost. Ciara Bohm will be counting down the time she's going to have to be on the pedals. You know, she's probably got 4 sections now where she needs to sprint.
Massive battle going on behind them between 7th and 10th place. Holubova, Salvini, Morgan, McPhee and Waite all involved in that one, but out front, boom. If Salvini Morgan can bring herself to a sprint for the line in front of these Brazilian crowds, that would tee things up lovely for the elite races.
Yeah, Ellen McPhee coming through fast in his last couple of laps.
But this woman really, you have to say, Ollie, faultless all race long, Baum.
Same in the short track yesterday.
If there's been a mistake this weekend from Kira Baum, I've not seen it.
Nope. Yeah, she's been clinical, taking this race apart, been in the right place, always at the right time. The only thing she did was add a slightly slower start, but then she made it back to the front within about 100 metres, was how good her power was. She's got across this steep little rock section now, couple of corners. We saw the lap before, she just had a little wobble, put the foot out. Oof.
Yeah. Just goes to show, not all over till it's over. Cross-country racing. The gap currently 10 seconds. There is Gina Kaluri on top of your screen. Now, I can tell you the Brazilian Salvini Morgan's up into 8th. Those riders still covered by just a handful of seconds between 7th and 10th. Kira Baum looks behind her, doesn't see anyone.
Kaluri as well, keeping the pressure on this kind of linking section. We've got one small climb, one descent, and then that long finish straight to go. But I think she's in racing or riding for second now.
Kaluri does have the fastest lap, but just to give you an idea of the margins at the front of this one, there's only a 1/10 of a second between it and Kira Baum.
Here we go, last climb, digging deep. Kaluri still strong, still in the same gears we've seen her in every lap, that kind of gear 2, gear 3 on the back. I think she hasn't really dropped off in terms of pace, it's more being Kira Baum accelerating and speeding up.
"12 seconds, 45 seconds back to Johnson.
And Monroe just gapping Corvey for that battle for 4th and 5th.
Yeah, Holubova currently winning the battle for 7th, but here comes Kira Baum, the queen of Mairipora. What a result for the German on Cube factory race, and she won the short track, and she's just won the opening cross-country Olympic race of the season. Gina Kaluri on the #1 bike, on the new team, happy with 2nd place, ultimately couldn't live with the pace of Baum on that final lap. As we await Emily Johnson in 3rd place, these two, lots of mutual respect. Gina Kaluri always big smiles at the end of a race, absolutely loves the sport.
That was a great race. Really
But
good.
new team, 2nd place, good reward.
Yeah, no, you take that.
Emily Johnson then for Trek Future Racing.
And the Future Racing star puts the factory star back in
tell you
place.
what, the factory squad are looking over their shoulders a bit just now after the first round of Brazil. Emily Johnson ran at the front for the entire race, looks absolutely spent, as well she might.
Yeah, so best result last year with a 4th place, so she's improved one this year, all going in the right direction.
There's Madigan Monroe, currently in 4th position.
And I think possibly she would have wanted more today, but ultimately, first round, no mistakes, no crashes, no technical issues. You know, a 4th place, you'll take it.
Hopefully just a couple of scuffs and scrapes from that crash. Madigan Monroe, US national champion, heads across the line in 4th place for Trek Factory Racing Pirelli. 1.5 minutes back off the winner, Baum. Big statement from Baum.
Yeah. We've still got this big gap. We're going to be a big fight for this 7th place.
Corvey, excuse me, crosses the line. Yep, brace yourselves for this one. They're coming in hot.
So Olivia Nesty, good ride, sat there, really productive, working in 6th place all day.
Solid seat post, hardtail bike, can still run with the bulls. On Nesty heading towards the line then. the highest placed French finisher. She'll take that all day long.
24 on the number board as well. So if you improve your number board, that's your UCI world rank at the start, you know you've had a good
barometer, yeah. And here comes the Brazilian.
Noise.
Salvini Morgan, listen to the noise. It's like she's won the thing. And here we go, the battle's on behind her. Sprinting for the line, then it is Holubova ahead of McPhee. It was close behind them as well. Wait, just Pippinhan, who led so well early on. Tyler Jacobs crosses a line behind them. Here is how that battle unfolded early on. Oh, so Holubova got a big bobble off the track and managed to recover and get back.
That was well held.
Touch. Fair play to her, yeah. Great bit of crisis management there. Maybe just made her angry. But there is your winner.
And last year, her best result was a 7th place.
Yeah,
you know, so to step that up, and it just shows in the U23s how quickly, you know, people can develop, how things can change.
Well, we talked about this, didn't we? Whenever, you know, 4 riders at the top of a class go up into elites, doors wide open.
Yeah, what a great scrap for Seth.
Brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're going to see some bar-to-bar banging this weekend, I think, on this circuit.
I think we're going to see a lot more of that this afternoon. Battles up and down the group. Some of them going right to the wire, but huge respect to Holubova to have had that big save.
Here with our under-23 cross-country winner today, Kira Baum, Cube Factory Racing. What a start to the season.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy. I never thought I would be so strong today. I mean, I know that I have a good shape right now. And in the XCC, it was not a surprise for me, but today I surprised myself a little bit.
The last lap, you were going into the final lap just wheel to wheel with second place. Did you know you had that gap on the climb? Was that a moment that you thought you could attack and push?
Yes, I felt super strong on the climbs today, but I had some stomach issues. So I had a feeling I couldn't push so hard in the beginning, but then in the last lap I thought I just should try it.
Amazing work. Congratulations, the win today. Well done.
Thank you so much.
I have a funny feeling we're going to talk a lot more about Kira Baum this season. If you can win like that with stomach issues in the run-up, you know, things aren't quite perfect, but still go out and do a job of work.
Yeah, and I think doing a double on an opening weekend
doesn't get much better.
We saw Riley Amos in the U23 men, and now Kira Baum doubling up in the U23 women. So that's
huge
statement.
Huge swagger heading into Arashah next weekend. Back-to-back weekends of racing at the Whoop UCI Mountain Bike World Series kicking things off. Here is how they finished then. Baum, Kaluri, Johnson, Monroe, Corvey, Onesti, Salvini Morgan, Holubova, McPhee and Waite. The top 10, 2 minutes 50 covering that top 10, just to give you an idea of how well Kira Baum did. Here are the highlights then of the opening round of the Whoop UCI Mountain Bike World Series 2024. The cross-country Olympic distance for the under-23 women got off the line well. Headed out onto the start loop. There was the usual chaos in the first steep punch. Riders battling for space further down the order. But at the front, it was quickly a trio of riders led by Kira Baum, Ginia Kaluri, Emily Johnson there in the Canadian National Champions jersey as well. They stayed together for the vast majority of it. Emily Johnson with this. I mean, it's very early in the season, but going for pass of the season already with that overtake in the rock section. The lead, trade of places back and forth. Kira Baum in the red helmet was quickly back at the front of it again. Ginia Kaluri on the number 1 plate, 5th last season. The 4 biggest riders from 2023 already up into elite, so brand new slate behind them. Madigan Monroe, the national champion of the USA, was doing battle, but out front there were 2 riders heading on the last lap. Boom, and Ginia Kaluri, and it was going to be a question of who would blink first. And Boom did what she did all weekend, just kept applying the pressure. And there was no answer for Ciara Boom, backing up a short track win earlier in the week with the opening cross-country Olympic round of the season. Ginia Kaluri, 2nd place on a brand new team. Happy with that. But as we head to Arusha, it was all about Ciara Boom for Cube Factory Racing.
Ginia Kaluri, 2nd place today. That was a tough fought battle all the way to the line. Tell us how you felt.
Well, I feel great because, I had a great start. Normally the start is not my favorite thing, and I was already so happy to have a good start. And for me it was a new experience to race in the front from the beginning, because last year I had some podiums but always messed up in the start and had to catch up so hard, and it was so nice to also use some tactics, and it was a great battle out with the girls.
Silver place, 2nd medal. Congratulations today.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
There we have it then. Ginia Kaluri enjoyed that one. That will have been a nervy one in the new team, Ollie.
Yeah, you always want to get off at a good start, then everyone's cool. You're cool with the bike, you're cool with the team, everyone's happy with you, and it's the amount of pressure that drops if you have a good first race is massive.
Crucially as well, she's had a good chance to learn.
3rd place, Emily Johnson. Congratulations. Tell us about your race today.
Well, it was hard, but it was really fun. I mean, the first World Cup of the year is always so exciting, and this course, the fact that it stayed so close together just made for some really exciting racing. And we just last weekend I raced the C1, and I really had a hard time in the heat, and so to come back and get some redemption was like really sweet. And also the fact that my teammate was on the podium yesterday makes it for a really special weekend.
Well, congratulations. Well done, 3rd place today.
Thank you.
Emily Johnson happy enough with that one as well. Yeah, we were just saying it. She's learned a lot about Ciara Boom this weekend as well, Ginia Kaluri. That'll come in handy in Arusha.
Yeah, I think you should be surprised. Like I say, Ciara Boom was always further back down the field last year. She's had a big improvement in the off-season, and I think she knows she's got where the battle is going to be.
Yeah, she's got a scrap on her hands. Ginia Kaluri already this season, I think that has patently been made clear by those performances from Ciara Boom. Elite women getting warmed up.
Not much of a warm-up required today in my book. I wouldn't be on the rollers quite yet.
It's kind of a misnomer, that, isn't it?
Only the locals need a full 40-minute warm-up.
Exactly, yeah. I was just thinking about the last time I saw somebody on rollers around here who wasn't in an ice fest. But there's Emily Johnson onto the podium, 3rd place for her. Trek Future Racing continuing to assert their presence in under 23 cross-country racing. Ginia Kaluri then 2nd place for the number 1 plate. Highest ranked rider heading into this one. Has to settle for 2nd place, but said she enjoyed herself out there. Arasha next weekend. Slightly more, perhaps, technical course might suit her better. Genia Kaluri beaten home by this woman, Kira Bohm. The German taken to the top step of the women's cross-country Olympic under-23 podium. Now you have your top three then, Bohm, Kaluri and Johnston. The three of them were together for the most fit, and they're together on the podium. Kaluri wins the champagne battle. Time to head back to the pit. Debrief. So there's your top 10. Bohm, Kaluri, Johnson, Monroe, Corvey on SD, Salvini, Morgan, Olibova, McPhee and Wade. Following them was Carla Han, who led earlier, and then Tyler Jacobs, the South African. Good race from her. Shrenska, 13th. Luisa Kokuzi, Brazilian, ahead of Oliveira Moraes. Roared on the whole way around. But there was no stopping Kira Bohm from Cube Factory Racing. Cashed out just as she did during the Short Track World Cup earlier in the weekend. Another cross-country double at the start of the season. Will we see another during the elite races, which are on our way to you just as quickly as we can get them there. There's Salvini Morgan celebrating with the crowd, but I don't think there was no mathematics needed at all as to who this jersey was going to go to. The overall World Cup leaders jersey belongs to Kira Bohm, and I think it's going to take some doing to get that away from her.
And you must be after such a performance. Enia and Emily were really strong today, but something happened at the start of that last.
So Bohm leads the way then, 165 points to the good, 117 points for Genia Kaluri. Madigan Monroe 60 points off the lead. Emily Johnson in fourth in that competition. Next up, we do have the UCI Cross Country Olympic World Cup for the elite women. The first round of this year's title race from Mairipora. What a track. Plenty of intrigue promised in that one. We cannot wait to get racing underway here in Brazil. The humidity continues to rise, so does the tension. The riders are on the rollers. Getting ready to go here with the elites, but the under-23 women delivered a really fascinating battle. Genia Kaluri, Kira Bohm going toe-to-toe. The German taking the win. Plenty more racing to come here on Discovery Plus and Max. Don't go anywhere. We will be back from Brazil imminently.